Hey guys, I'm back. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a while since I posted a video, but I felt inspired to jump on here and show off some cool stuff I have in bloom. Before we get started, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It means a lot to me. I also got a new tattoo. Maybe you guys don't care, but I have a captive audience here and I love showing it off, so please indulge me for a moment. It's a velociraptor fossil skeleton and it looks super cool next to my fern. Kind of goes with the theme here of like plants and reptiles and stuff. I'll probably continue it, end up with a full sleeve because I have an addictive personality. Yeah, so I'll keep you guys updated on the tattoo progress. But anyway, that's not what you guys are here for. Let's go check out some plants. Up first, I want to give you guys a look at the top shelf of my grow space here because it's looking awesome. It's springtime, so there's lots of new growth, lots of spikes and blooms. Everything's looking green and wonderful. I'm excited to give you guys a closer look, so let's check it out. I think this is my current pride and joy. I am so in love with this thing. I've had it for a while, but it's my first time blooming it, and I couldn't be happier. This is a stunning Bifolia cattleya. It's a hybrid, and I pulled out the tag here. This is a Cattleyas by Schilleriana. It's Black Mamba by Sebastian Farrell. A Cattleyas and Schilleriana are both really cool Bifolia cattleya species. I believe they're both from Brazil, and they just make a really nice hybrid. This has a pretty even mix of traits from both the parents, I'd say. I love that about primary hybrids. A couple notes about the culture for these guys. As you've heard, I'm sure, Bifolia cattleyas can be kind of tricky to grow. I've had this for a while and it's my first time blooming it. It took a while to get established. It was a pretty small plant when I first got it, so they can be a bit slow growing. I would recommend if you're going to get one of these Bifolia type cattleyas, it's probably best to get one that's pretty well established. But I did buy this one pretty small and it bloomed within a couple years, so not too bad, but you just gotta be patient with these guys. They like nice bright light. They do like a good deal of humidity and airflow. I would say that's a bit more important with the Bifolia cattleya than some other cattleyas. A lot of cats aren't too picky about the humidity, but it does seem to make a difference with these bifoliates. And I think that's because they produce a ton of like aerial roots. They don't grow neatly in a pot. They usually do best either mounted or in a basket or something. Mine is currently in a pot because I bought it pretty small, but it's outgrown it. It's growing all over the place, so they aren't neat growers, and I think that's why the humidity can help because they are sort of just growing in the open air a lot of the time. And the last tip I'll give for this, I'm sure you've heard before, but these bifoliates really don't like to be repotted, and there's sort of like a right time of year to do it to minimize the pouting after. So you want to repot them right when they're putting out new roots, but before the new roots make contact with the media. So they're kind of actively putting out roots, but you're not disturbing roots that have already made contact with the media. If you repot them at the wrong time, they could pout for years. That's why it's good to grow these like in a basket or mounted, so you don't have to mess with them too much. So it probably sounds like they're hard to grow, and they're not the easiest, but I flowered mine. It can't be that hard. They are really gorgeous, and it seems like it's worth the effort because it's just absolutely stunning. I love Bifolia cattleyas. I haven't been buying a lot of cattleyas lately, but I always have a weakness for these spotted cats and bifoliate species and stuff, so absolutely love this one. I'm so happy to have it. All right, now jumping over to this section. I just love how this is looking. It's very photogenic right now. As you can see, there are a couple complex hybrid cattleyas back there. The pure white one is Cattleya White Bridal Yuki, which is a very nice white cattleya. I really love white cattleyas, and there aren't a lot of like small or miniature ones, so this is a really nice one. I think it has a lot of Walkeriana in its heritage, which explains why I like it so much. I'm obsessed with Walkeriana, and it has a lot of those traits, but it's nice because it's not quite as fussy as some of its species ancestors. Obviously, you get that hybrid vigor, so to speak, and this one's just a really easy grower, super fragrant, very standard cattleya culture, very easy. When I shared pictures of mine online, I got quite a few comments about how nice the form was on mine, and I think I do agree that it looks a little bit better than some other pictures I've seen. That one looks quite perfect. I'm thinking about keeping some pollen from this and trying to do something one day. Up next here we have another really nice hybrid. This is BLC Hawaii Stars Pink Lace, and a lot of the same goes for this. It's a complex hybrid, obviously. This one also has a lot of Walkeriana in its heritage. Very beautifully fragrant, and you could probably tell it has some Brassivola influence in there. It gets that sort of tubular shaped lip, and the foliage is a bit longer and thinner than some other Cattleyas. And I really grow this for the fragrance. The flowers are quite nice, but the fragrance is wonderful. Again, this one smells quite similar to a Walkeriana. And I have a Walkie, but it's a bit stubborn and doesn't always bloom for me, so at least I have this to hold me over, so I get to enjoy a similar fragrance. I really do love this thing. And then we have this stunning creature up front here. This is Tolumnia Calipana Red. Sorry, I just moved it a little bit to try to give you a better view. I'm not sure if it actually helped or not, but whatever. Like I was saying, this is a Tolumnia. I read up on them a little bit so I could try to sound smart. They are from like South America and Central America, and they used to be considered Oncidiums. They're, I think, still part of the Oncidium Alliance, but I think they were actually called Oncidiums for a little while anyway, and then they were separated and given their own genus, which makes sense to me. They're quite different than a lot of Oncidiums. Oncidiums are very diverse anyway, but Tolumnia definitely seems unique. They like to be kept more bright and airy and drier than most Oncidiums. I would say like quite dry. These are one of those orchids that you let them dry out and then you let them remain dry for a couple days. Of course, that stuff depends on like your humidity and everything. If you have super dry air, you might have to water it a bit more often or whatever, but definitely err on the side of keeping these dry. They are pretty susceptible to like rot and things like that. Here's a look at the foliage. They have pretty cool leaves. Like I said, they like pretty bright light. It's good to see some of that reddish coloration on there. And they like to be potted pretty loosely with minimal media. Mine mostly just has a couple wine corks in there. It's quite airy. It stays pretty dry, which is what these guys like. And the flowers are just awesome. Tolumnias have some of the brightest colors and coolest little patterns and stuff. They have so much contrast with like the splashes of like white and yellow and stuff in there. They're just awesome. And for a while they weren't like that popular. I think it's only kind of recently that people started doing a lot of hybridizing and stuff, and there's a lot more varieties available nowadays, so definitely give them a shot. They're pretty temperature tolerant and adaptable and all that, so they're pretty easy as long as you keep them pretty bright and pretty dry and give them a lot of air movement. But this is my only Tolumnia. I'd like to get some more because they're nice and small, but they have a great deal of payoff with those flowers, so really cool. I definitely recommend these guys. And another hybrid Cattleya. Sorry there's so many Cattleyas in this video. It's just springtime, I guess, is the season for the Cattleya blooms. But here is another cool one, and there's a funny story with this one. I mentioned it in my last video, but in case you didn't catch it, this is Cattleyas Orange Walker Red, and this was like a wish list orchid of mine for a while, and I finally tracked this plant down. I only got it like a month or two ago. And the reason I was so desperate to find one is because I actually had one of these kind of a long time ago, like when I was first getting into orchids. It like hung on for a long time, but just kind of like died tragically and slowly. And it was kind of strange. Like I was pretty new to orchids, so I definitely accept responsibility for killing it, but I don't know, there was something kind of weird with it. I wonder if it had a virus or something, but who knows? But I don't know, ever since then, have you ever like lost an orchid, and even if it's one that you weren't that crazy about, for some reason you're just like, I need to replace it? And the fact that they were just like seemingly completely unavailable made it a bit more tantalizing for me, because I had one and now it's dead and now I can't find another one anywhere. I just became a little bit obsessed with tracking one of these down, and I finally got one, so I'm just excited. And it is a pretty like unique, interesting flower. It's very weird looking. It looks almost like it has like Bratonia or something in it. And I'm just excited to finally have another one again and to actually treat it right this time. So I've seen pictures of these when they're really well grown, and they can become like enormous specimen plants with like tons and tons of flowers. They seem like they're not shy about blooming once they're established, so pretty cool. I'm very happy to finally have replaced my orange walker. And last but not least, here we have the beautiful, incomparable Vanda Pachara Delight, which I'd be surprised if you hadn't heard of by now. It's a pretty famous orchid. It's really well loved for these beautiful, big, purple, blue, indigo flowers. The color really is stunning. It's about as close to a blue as you can get with orchids. So people love it for that reason. It really is spectacular. And look how big that flower is too. Really nice kind of tessellation in the petals. It's just gorgeous. Here's a look at the plant in full. It's not huge, it's like fairly compact as far as Vandas go, but I mean, it's a pretty standard size Vanda. You gotta have some space for it. I am growing mine potted at the moment, but it was bare root for a long time. As you know, that's a popular way to grow Vandas, and they do generally like that type of culture as long as you can keep up with the hydration. And of course, being like a home grower, I had a hard time keeping it wet and humid enough to grow this bare root. So I did end up potting it in bark, and ever since it's been growing much better. This is my first time blooming it, and I think potting it up is what gave it the chance to grow a little bit better and eventually bloom for me. So I'm thrilled that it's taken a turn for the better here. It's pretty standard Vanda care. If you aren't familiar, Vandas like pretty bright light. This one seems to do with a little bit less light than you might expect. I actually bloomed mine in a windowsill that doesn't even have the best exposure, honestly. You know, it was bright enough to bloom this, so even if your light isn't the best, you might still have a shot at blooming one of these, but do plan to give it pretty bright light. Mine, like I said, is potted in bark. It's pretty coarse bark, and you do have to be careful. These can grow potted, they really don't mind it, but you just have to be a bit more careful about the watering and try not to let it get super waterlogged. Vandas like a lot of water, but it's just a tough balance. You want to let them dry out a bit between waterings and such, so the potted culture is a good option. You just have to be kind of careful with it. But this is definitely very hybridized, so I think that's why it's a bit hardier and a bit less fussy than some, species Vandas. And they can even bloom a couple times a year. That's nice as well. And now I'm just excited to grow it better going forward and try to get more of these flowers because I just love them. This is such a fabulous orchid, and I totally recommend it to anybody. It's not fragrant. Unfortunately, a lot of Vandas smell really nice. This one does not, but I think it makes up for it with that color. It's just stunning. Alright guys, I think I'll have to cut it off here for now. I do have more stuff I could talk about, but I don't want this video to be too long, so I'll do a follow-up soon. I do have some stuff I'm really excited to show off. I've been picking up a few non-orchid plants for a change, and I have a couple super cool ones that I can't wait to show to you guys, so that'll be in my next one. So please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It means so much to me. I really appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll be back soon with a new video. Peace out.